so, week and a half, I've been trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to really speak about today. So I got my notepad and I started writing a bunch of things down. And it's kind of like what you see in the movies, you know, somebody scribbling something down and then they wad it up, throw it in the trash can, and then they scribble something down and do the same thing. I'm kind of more on the fly guy, so I did write down some topics that I'm hoping I can remember. So for the past 10 and a half years has shaped my life in a totally different way. So a lot of you people who have known me for quite a few years, sometimes I get emotional talking about this, because you know the new Al Richards. So 10 and a half years ago, 11 years ago, 12 years ago, I probably wouldn't care less about anybody in this room, because all I wanted to do was focus on me and my career. I started working for an organization that some of you may know. It was called Huey's Detergents. Started working for them back in 1986. I was like 22 years old. I spent 22 years with this company. Spent 3 years in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which was quite the challenge. I was very happy I got offered to go there. I spent from 98 to about 2001 helping a plant get up and going. I do remember working my butt off. I worked 7 days a week for a year and a half straight to get production up and going, training mechanics. We installed some new lines. This job was my life, basically. I had gotten a divorce with my daughter, beautiful daughter's here today. I'm happy to say that her mom and I are still good friends, which is very good, because it means a lot to our daughters. But my life was working in manufacturing. I gave it everything that I had. And to move up the corporate ladder, when I got invited or asked, when I wanted to come back, I should say back to Salt Lake so I could be close to my daughters again, they basically said, we're going to give you a lot of responsibility. And I was down for it. I'm like, bring it on. I'm ready. And so they put me over all the production lines, which was really good. Then pretty soon I was over the parts room, which was okay. Then they put me over all of housekeeping, which again was okay. Then I was over all the property maintenance. So you guys can imagine, just with all that, the responsibility that I had. I had 43 people that worked underneath me. I had about every nationality you can think of. So I got to learn a lot of different types of personalities, which I really do believe has helped shape me to where I am today and who I am today, because I got to learn about so many different cultures and different people. So what I didn't realize with all this responsibility that I asked for, it came with a lot of stress, a ton of stress. So I was usually at work a half hour early. I was there at 6:30 in the morning, and I was usually there till probably 7:30, 8:30, sometimes 9:30, sometimes midnight, till the next day. I did this for quite a while, and the stress started getting to me. I actually had put on a ton of weight. I was at 198 pounds, and a lot of that weight that came on me was because I was partying my butt off every Friday and Saturday night. That was my release of dealing with stress. I brought my work home with me all the time, so the only way I could get work out of my head was to party it up on the weekends. Sunday would come, I'd get my act back together, I'd get my head back on straight. Monday I was right back at it, and I gave it everything I had again till Friday, and then I was right back. Matter of fact, a lot of the partying that I was doing, my wife had no clue. She had no clue. That's how well I hid my partying, except for my drinking. Now, she knew I was drinking, because usually by the time she came home from work on Friday, I was probably already half lit, because I'd get home, do my yard work so I didn't have to mess with it on Saturday, and man, I was just raring to go. So 24 years in a place, you think you got it set, right? I was brought up in a generation where you get a high school education. If you don't want to go to college, you get a job and you stay there till you retire. Well, that's exactly what I did. I didn't know I had other choices. I do now, but I didn't know I had other choices. So one day, I end up going into work. I don't have a job. So after 24 years, I lose my job. That was pretty hard to pass that on to my wife, especially when we had gotten married just 2 months before. So in 2009, that's when my life really started changing. I lost my job in July. We were married in May, so in July I lost my job. August, my wife lost her dad to an overdose. And then about right around the first part, about February 2010, we lost our house. So we had nowhere to go. All our stuff went into storage. We had no money. I had used all my retirement trying to fight for the house, save the house, just tried to do everything. And the whole time I was doing this all on my own. I did not even try to bring my wife into the equation. I literally shoved her in the corner and said, I'll take care of this. I'll take care of it because this is what the man of the house is supposed to do. And I started changing at that time. It got to the point where I finally wanted to decide who I was as a person, because really I thought I was a badass because of everything that I had accomplished in my life. Now I'm finding out I ain't so big. You know, life can hit you with things very, very quickly. You know, life isn't designed to give you success. Basically, it's there to give you failures. And the reason why the failures are there is so it helps you grow. Because if we are successful every single day of our life, how are we going to grow? There's nothing to grow from. We can't do it. We've got to have those failures so we can hopefully see those failures and better ourselves. So my wife and I, we had a couple heated discussions because I said, I am not going to work for a corporation ever again. I'm not punching a clock. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm not punching a clock. So as you guys heard in my little 60-second spill, I've done all kinds of odd end things. Got out. As a matter of fact, one of the first things I got is, that's how I met George, because I don't know how he found my number or whatever. I think he was stalking me, I don't know. But he called me up and said, hey, you want to come to work for Legal Shield? So I did. You know, I just spent 24 years in manufacturing. That wasn't quite my thing. I didn't know how to call people. You know, I met with vendors and things like that and built relationships, but I wasn't the type of person that I am today. So that didn't quite work out for me. But I did all kinds of different things. And even though I was working on myself as a person to decide who I want to be, because I knew I had something different inside of me, I just didn't know what that was. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know how I was going to find that. So while all this was going on, I pushed my wife more to the side. And that was probably one of the worst things one of the worst things that I did, because my wife started figuring out a way to help her through all this pain and sorrow. So she started taking the bottle, and I started noticing it to where when we had little get-togethers with friends, because we were living in friends' houses for the first 2 years after I lost my job, because we had no money. We couldn't afford a place of our own. Luckily, we had good friends that reached out their hands and said, come and stay with us. We got kicked out of both those places during those times because of how bad my wife was getting with her drinking. It was getting extremely bad. So once we started getting back on our feet a little bit and we could get into an apartment, kind of fast forward some things, the last 2 years has really been a tough go. You know, my wife started hitting the bottle extremely bad. She got to the point where finally none of the family members, her family members, wanted anything to do with her. I was arguing with her therapist at her second or third rehab. I can't remember which one it was because a lot of this has all been a blur to me. But she would tell me, Allie, there's nothing you can do. And I'm like, bull crap. I'm a fixer. I can do this. I can help her. I argued with her therapist for a couple months, and finally my light bulb went off and I realized she's right. There is nothing I can do to help her. This has to be her battle. So as time went on, it got worse and worse, and like I said, the past 2 years has been such a battle. Again, I try not to get emotional during this part, but Last June, I was coming home from somewhere. I can't even tell you where I was coming home from. I got a phone call. Well, I was just coming home from an event. And I had decided at this time that I'm going to go home. I'm going to get my 9mm. I'm going to go up to the mountains. I'm done. I can't deal with the financial stress anymore. I can't deal coming home to a battlefield every single flipping night. A lot of you guys during the past 2 years have seen me at networking groups and different things like that. And every time I went to those things before I got out of my car, I had to build myself back up to be this person that a lot of you guys have gotten to know. You know, I wanted to come out with a smile on my face. You guys know I'm a hugger. I love giving hugs. And just like everything's great in my world. And it really wasn't. It was a battle. So I had made the decision. I'm done. I can't deal with this any longer. Luckily, God works in mysterious ways. I got a phone call. When I got this phone call, again, my head was so messed up at the time, I can't even tell you who it was that called me. And I wish I could remember, because I would love to thank that person. Because when I got off the phone, my screensaver on my phone is a picture of my 2 beautiful daughters and my 3 beautiful grandkids. Excuse me. I pulled off to the side of the road and just broke down and started crying. I realized at that time, thank you, my dear. I realized at that time when I saw that picture, I cannot cheat my daughters and my grandkids time away with me because of what's going on in my life. So once I got done kind of feeling sorry for myself, I've got a friend by the name of Holly. She's a sergeant at the West Jordan Police, and she had started a nonprofit organization called the Peer Support Program, where they bring in money, find sponsors to help put money off to the side so her fellow officers have a place to go to get help. Because, you know, we all do it, but with our first responders, they see a lot of things we don't see. They have to deal with a lot of stuff. And, you know, if you're a cop, you got to be big, bad. You know, you're not supposed to show emotions. And that's why a lot of our first responders are also committing suicide, just like I was thinking about doing. And they have seen probably a lot worse than what I have gone through. So she said, Al, the first thing you got to do is you got to get yourself away from your situation. I really didn't know how to do that because I still loved my wife, no matter how bad she was and what she was putting me through. I didn't trust her any longer, and it's hard to live with somebody that you don't trust. It's hard to live with somebody that is calling you every flipping name in the book when you get home, and the reason why she's mad at you is because you're mad at her. And you know this is not the person you fell in love with. You know it's the alcohol that's causing it. It's not who she is, and I know that because that's why after 3 years of dating her, I finally decided to try marriage again, because I knew what kind of woman she was. But she was also battling things inside of her that she had held on for so long. And with the loss of our house, me losing my job, the loss of her dad, it just compounded everything. And her life went upside down, and that's why she went to medicate herself. So I'm thinking, how do I get myself out of this situation? And Holly said, she goes, Al, you know you need to do this. And I said, yep, you're right. And was I taking her advice? Yeah, I was taking her advice, but probably about this much of it. Because again, I still had the ego that I can figure out how to do this. And so I thought, okay, Holly's right. How do I go about doing this? Can I do it by myself? Well, the next day I reached out to one of my friends, or one of my wife's best friends, and she lives in Richfield. And my wife and this lady have been friends for 25 years. I mean, they've been friends for a long time. That's how I met this lady. And she was knowing what the battle was, and she said, Al, I love your wife to death, and I love you as well, but she says, you know you have to get yourself out of this situation. And I don't know if that's what I was looking for. It was like somebody else kind to, kicking me in the rear to telling me this is the way you got to go. So I took Holly and Trina's advice. Now, when you care for somebody and you have so much love for them and you know that it's the addiction that's making them who they are, it's very, very difficult when you come home one day and they're so hammered and you basically have to tell them to get the heck out, that you don't want them around. That was one of the hardest things that I had to do. So it happened a little bit. She decided to get back into rehab. We got her back into rehab. During that time, I was doing my best to get out of our contract at the apartment complex that we were at. And it was really easy, to be honest with you, because all I had to say is, aren't you guys tired of the cops coming over all the time? And they said, yeah, just one more month and you can be out of here. So thank goodness that it worked out all right, in kind of a bad way, but it was still a good way. So I found me a new place to live, and I had to file a protection order against my wife because it started getting physical. She'd get mad, she started hitting on me. One of the ones that finally was the last straw, she threw a knife at me. It was a butter knife, but it was still a knife, So to file a protection order on your spouse, there's another hard step to take. It's not very easy because she has nowhere to go. None of her family members wanted her, none of her sisters, none of her brothers. They just wanted her to stay away. So anyway, she got back into rehab again, and it put a roof over her head, and this rehab was in American Fork. And she got to the point where they finally started letting her go out on her own, where she didn't have to have somebody with her. And her mom has been ill for quite some time, so I had an event I had to go to, so I dropped her off to visit her mom. And then once she was done with her mom, she was actually going to get on the tracks and go back to American Fork, go to rehab. So about 3 hours later, my phone rang, and it's her. And as soon as she started talking, my heart broke again. She was drunk already. So of course, when you go back to rehab, the first thing that they do is they UA you and they give you a breathalyzer. Well, she came back positive for alcohol. So they kicked her out. So she called me and she says, I'm on my way to your house. And I said, no, you're not. You're drunk. You cannot come and step a foot in my place. And she wasn't even supposed to know where I lived, but my soft heart, when she was sober one time, I took her over to where I lived. That was a big mistake, in a way, but also in a way it turned out to be a big blessing. So she showed up, knocked on the door. She's drunk as can be. She wants me to let her in. I will not let her in. She's hungry, so I'm like, well, I'll just put some food out. I mean, it's almost like, and it's bad to say, it's almost like treating somebody that you love like one of your pets, that you won't allow in your house. You put their food out on the front porch and just hope they don't bug you. So this went on for a little bit, and it finally got to a point where she was knocking on my door so much, and she was literally, I don't know where she was sleeping, but she showed up on my doorstep on a Tuesday morning, her hair all frail, pine needles sticking out of it. She looked extremely bad. She wanted to come in and take a shower, get something to eat. She was sober, so I allowed her to come in because she was sober. I told her she could stay there as long as she was sober because I had things I had to do. By the time I got home again, she had found a way to get alcohol, and she was hammered again. So once again, I had to kick her out. But this time it got so bad because she kept showing up, knocking on the door. I did not want to have the same thing happen that happened at the other apartment complex. So I ended up calling the cops, and they found her outside. The cops came up and they said, we found your wife and we've arrested her. My wife spent 40 days in jail. For the first 15, 16, 17 days, I ignored every one of her phone calls. Now, again, somebody that you care, first of all, when you kick them out of your house and they're drunk, you don't sleep because you're worried all night she's going to run across the wrong people and they're going to grab her. They're going to take her somewhere. They're going to rape her. They're going to kill her. They're going to leave her in a ditch. You don't sleep. You don't rest. Your mind is constantly messing with you, saying there's something bad that's going to happen. When she's in jail, it's the same thing. Finally, after the 15, 16 days or so, I finally decided that I was going to answer her phone call. And of course, still at that time, she still had a lot of alcohol in her system. It takes a while when you drink that much for that alcohol. I was being called every name in the book for putting her in jail. All I could do was hang up because I could not go back to where I was losing my temper. Because I went to therapy back in my early 20s to learn how to control my temper because my temper was extremely bad. You hit me on the wrong side, I don't care how big, how small, who you were, what you were, I was coming at you. And then one day I hurt somebody that I really cared about, saw him laying on the floor, and that's when I said, this is not who I want to be. So when I started feeling those feelings coming back, it scared me. So about another, 13 days went by or so. She called me. I finally started talking to her. She really started sobering up. The Salt Lake Community Jail had put her in C Block. C Block is where they put a lot of the gangster girls. Now my wife's 5'2" and weighs about 115 pounds, and just looking at the wrong person, she was about to get her butt kicked. My wife's not a street girl. She doesn't know how to take care of herself on that stuff. So anyway, to make a long story short, she spent 40 days in jail, and she finally wanted to get out of there. She promised me she was going to get her act together. She did not want to live her life this way. So she had a friend. I have no money. I can't put up the bail. I have zero money. The bail was only $175. I didn't even have $175. I didn't even have $20. So one of her friends said, I will put up the bail, but I will not sign the papers. So I signed the papers to help get her out. And I do have to say, not to drag on about this, last week my wife hit 6 months sober. She's got a great attitude. Out of all the 4 other rehabs she's been in, I've never seen her with this type of attitude before. So with all this that I'm trying to share with you guys today, as it said on the saying on the Facebook, you know, what if everything you are going through in your life right now at this time, this moment, is preparing you for a dream bigger than you can ever imagine? So to go back when I was working at Hewish and I was partying every weekend, I remember one weekend in particular, I remember looking in the mirror in the bathroom, and I remember asking God to help me, because I knew if I continued down this road that it was probably going to end up killing me. Well, as I say, God works in mysterious ways, and I don't know if you're a spiritual person or not. I wasn't expecting him to make me lose my job or have me lose my job. But that was the exact step I needed to take to put me where I'm at today. Whenever I went to an AA meeting once with my wife, well, many times with my wife, there was a gentleman that got up and spoke, and he had just hit 5 years sober and clean. 3 minutes? Thank you. And he said at the end of it, he goes, I want to let everybody know right now, whether you believe in God or not, or a higher power, he says, I thank God right now for this minute for making me an addict and an alcoholic. And I looked at that dude. I mean, I don't think he could see my facial expressions, but I looked at him and I went, you're freaking nuts, dude. Why the heck would you tell God thank you for making you an addict and an alcoholic? Shortly after that, he shared because of how good his life is right now. He said his life is the best it's ever been. I got it at that time. So everything that I've been going through the past 10.5 years has prepared me for this moment right now. I'm tired of people bringing me on. You know, I help them get things going and do different things, and then I'm kind of like pushed off to the side. I've had many people that I know, a few in this room, and there's been others who have said, Al, you need to start going out there. Connect with people, you're good with people, share your stories, because there's other people out there that are dealing with the same type of things that you're dealing with, and you have been able to push past that. So again, God works in mysterious ways. Things finally started happening. I'm not ashamed to say I hit my knees pretty much on a daily basis, and the people that are coming into my life and the things that are happening with me right now, I really do believe this is the path that I'm supposed to take. I'm hoping that as this progresses and I get going even more to where I can get in front of more people and I can help share my story, because I know there are others who have gone through the same thing, to where I can help them and let them know you don't have to think about grabbing a gun and doing any harm to you or anything. That instead of looking through that hole through your fingers and just seeing a tunnel, there's so much more out there. But we get so locked into what our troubles are, our blinders close so tight, we forget the common sense that there's ways out there. And there are people who are willing to help you. People who are willing to help you that are just friends. Other acquaintances. I've had so many people that have seen my stories on Facebook come up to me and share their stuff, and it has just blown me away of how alcohol and different things affect everybody. It's out there. So I just want to say thank you again to the Murray Chamber for allowing me to be up here and allowing me to share my story. I apologize for my tears, but it really comes from my heart. I get emotional talking about it because, you know, it's just who I am. To where I am with my wife right now, we are working things out, and I'm still sticking by her side. As long as she's willing to put the foot forward, I'm willing to be by her side. And I don't have that fear of trust anymore because she doesn't have that alcohol in her anymore. So I know I've got the woman who I fell in love with. I know it's a woman that I can trust and that I can believe in again. And I'm going to believe in her until she proves me wrong. And I hope anybody that you guys know, you know, don't go through the battles, but everybody needs support. It doesn't matter what they're going through, everybody needs support. So again, thank you, Stephanie, for allowing me here. Carol, my dear, thank you so much for inviting me here, and I hope I was able to touch your guys' heart one way or another, so thank you so much.